남남랭게 치료들이 좋아도 접제도 아니 다 드린 치료살이야. 예. 가경이 류가바 류가바 빨리 코인님이 렌즈도 코인님이 말어 딱 코인님이 꼬마 다 디슈리 말해.
First of all, I would like to wish everyone good afternoon, and this afternoon we will be going through the chapter on the sufferings of samsara, the 5th chapter of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation.
대들입니다. 시행 지도的 라르게원 요원은 계산은 힘이 로주 표준소바 톱용 달라티 지초냐나 대네 시베데와라 차이노 대님을 거인님이고 고머시아브르 차데 돔 뉴지게네 동엔 대신 교회 동엔 동행게네 동엔데 숨게 거인님이 뉴시아가데 대달 동에 숨보데 빼고는 뉴지게 동에는 제메미 받아라 교회 동에는 제제 도달되바 사다라 동해기 동에는 제기된도 폴충원다 나와 양 동에 숨보데 랑경 오요고는 신은 뉴지게 동엔 소와 땅용부 있는 교회 동에는 소와 대화 있는 동해기 동에는 소와 동해 있는 양 동해 대수 신이기 관에 시나 뉴지기 동에는 부모 열레 부모들 나와서기 동에는 대화 있는 대양 수수기우는 뉴지기 동에인데 마서데 빼나 림네 잡을 신자 나와라서 벌리기 나서 카콜로지에 미스로시는 균도 주발라서 파원은 뉴지기 동에인데 시디 빼나 림네 페이지 수여자 나와라서 벌리기 나서 카콜로지에 서로시는 빼신야 뿌냥마지 러디는 돈은 미대와 동에 매대 디니 미드소는 미대와 동에게도 대신 뉴지기 동에도 수수기우를 여기 동에도 미소도 파원은 동에도 채워 대단히 저기 저거래 라디 분야지도 봐 되는 미도 소하는 미대와도 동에게 지발라딘 자원 뉴지 동에 보미도 파본 미대 자원 뉴질랜드 동에서 시 소소 이번 교회 동에는 거에 대와 진이 받던 다른 균 동에는 로에나 교회 동에 시자 대단히 인지 빼만가면 돌래 파이기진 동에 좀 교라서 민남이 예시게 동에 교원 교라서 시 소소 대나 미게고 콜로교와도 주 탑장 타르 동에는 교르데 시진의 콜로교행이도 주네 코와타나 양전이도 주 셰송소 데르마스 라양 부게진 더비 류단로죠 탑장 타르치보시 동인데 지게도 계신 추윤이도 주네 레이왕 라야 서딩로 셰송소 데르마스 라이게 상벌라서 보다본 데벤데 샤다 체네 삼딩 유주가 대화도 타르동인데 지게도 선이 차대 대화 통는 남의 매비신 교바의 동의 유미체와 댄서 셰송소 숨바 동해기 동해 지rin 여arle 모모데 랑바 랑게 동해 메딘도 동해 첨부만 봐 이노 대야 녀주 동해다 댄주 동해 니 시아버자 대라 당보시나 녀손에 그래도 이제 시아버자오
You may think that it is fine that impermanence causes to die because you will be reborn again, and once you are reborn you will have an opportunity to enjoy all the glorious pleasures of the gods and humans, and that will be sufficient for you. Such thinking typifies one who is attached to samsara's pleasure. As the antidote to this attitude, one should meditate on the faults of samsara. The summary: all pervasive suffering, likewise the suffering of change and the suffering of suffering, these three constitute the faults of samsara. If these three sufferings were explained by simile, the all-pervasive suffering would be like unripe fruit, the suffering of change would be like eating poisonous fruit, or poisonous rice, and the suffering of suffering would be like mold on fruit. If one explained these three sufferings with their definitions, the all-pervasive suffering would be a neutral sensation, the suffering of change would be a feeling of pleasure, and the suffering of suffering would be a feeling of pain. The primary characteristics of these three sufferings were explained. We would see that we are pervaded by the suffering the moment the afflicted skandhas come to exist. All-pervasive suffering. Ordinary people will not feel the all-pervasive suffering as, for example, when one is stricken with a serious plague and a small pain in the ears and so forth is not noticeable. But the noble beings, the noble ones beyond samsara, such as stream enterers and so forth, will see the all-pervasive suffering, as, for example, when one is nearly recovered from a plague and the small pain of an ear infection is experienced as suffering. There is another example. When a hair is in the palm of your hand, there is no suffering or discomfort. But when that very hair goes into your eye, there is suffering and discomfort. Likewise, this all-pervasive suffering will not be felt as suffering by ordinary people, but it will be seen as suffering by the noble beings. The commentary on the Treasury of Abhidharma says, when one hair from the palm of your hand goes to the eye, there will be discomfort and suffering. The childish, like the palm of the hand, are not aware of the hair of all-pervasive suffering. The saintly are like an eye, and will feel the all-pervasive suffering. Second, the suffering of change. The second type, the suffering of change, is so called because all the pleasure and happiness of samsara will eventually change into suffering. The White Lotus of Great Compassion Sutra says, the kingdom of gods is a cause of suffering. All the human kingdoms are also a cause of suffering. Therefore, even if one gained a universal monarchy over beings, that would eventually change to suffering. The letter to a friend says, even if one became a universal monarch, one would eventually fall into slavery and samsara. Not only that, even one who achieved the body and enjoyment of Indra, the king of gods, would eventually die and fall. Again, the letter to a friend says, even though one becomes Indra, who is praiseworthy, one will fall down to the earth by the power of karma. Not only that, one who has achieved the state of Brahma and so forth, the king of gods who transcended the desire world and who experiences the pleasure of meditative concentration, would eventually fall. The letter to a friend says, one who achieves the pleasure and happiness of Brahmahood, free from the desire world, will again become the fuel of avicii and suffer continuously. The suffering of suffering. Now the third, the suffering of suffering, is the appearance of all the greater sufferings in addition to the suffering which pervades the moment we have the afflicted skandhas. Within this category, one should understand the two types of suffering, suffering of the lower realms and suffering of the higher realms.
Tela nyawala yena tsawe nyawa ge changwe nyawa ge de juru nye sewa de nye korwa ni de joge to tsawe nyawa de ne kana ne zombu ling de wana ne de dine teren rowa mawe chiru teya wana narme besimje nyawa ne te dine yala raudu tsawa de ngumbu chenpo de ngumbu de dunjum de tina de yangsue namsu 대다를 최고버즈 요 동타니 남매 바와 대상 대디는 야와 뒤셰 송소 대다가 동에 진용을 단주비 군제 튜모도 덴버 차데 다 덴버 차데스 야
If one were to explain the first type, the lower realms consist of these three, the hells, hungry ghosts, and the animals. Each of these should be understood through four categories: classification, location, type of suffering, and the lifespan. The hell realm. First is the classification of the hell realms. There are 8 hot and 8 cold hells, making 16, with the occasional hells and the neighboring hells totaling 18. Where are all the hot hells located? Below this Jambudvipa. There are a great number of beings there. The lowest is Avicii, or constant suffering hell. Above that are the Pratapana, or intense heat hell, the Tatapana, or the heating hell, the Maharaurava, or great howling hell, the Raurava, howling hell, the Samgata crushing hell, the Kalasutra, black thread hell, and Samjiva, or reviving hell. Thus the Treasury of Abhidharma says 20,000 yojanas below here is the constant suffering hell. Above that there are the other 7 hells. What type of suffering do they experience? This is explained according to their names.
占据的就是推摩的代表者，在当不阳水的鸟啊起来就平时德普接近，山的农场木那边阳水不就了。他在车马赛去吧都，听那呢看听那个都呢，烧了没รับ都把下过的，当然没รับ都把下过去的，起个都开始烧炼炸的，烧炼这个天信息，当然没是烧炼那么就小，这送说，对中的这一把旅行装吧的，价格安达一把的旅行装吧，他当不呢，看到超人的如果当不得你用的，甚至他当装不起来，他那日天你吃的给我的出长毛那边两阿妈的水，养中的。양좀데대가들쳐봐 대다량 루징리 르더님 루루진 지수로니 뒤베 차도 루빈 참을 라진 좀 세소 송소 카지 짜기 안드르기 받을 저와다 차가 추 시점 바 시장밤 바보 대다량 카지 들신 츠르데 대신신 체마 시무신도 뒤돌로 제 송소 문비는 심지어 세관은 작은 가로지 뭐 문비 전부 라버랑 가로지 뭐 차안에 멜라서 동화 쳐봐대 초주 그만 칼로고 공부 쳐봐대 양 천에 지고 세마진 이상은 지원비고 알아도 싸네 개발도 동화 쳐봐대 초주 그만라서 빠빠이 민만에 쓰이네 보가고는 면종하다 양 천세 수배 상람도更第你 지오도 부모님 좀 빅바와 대단한 대신 현다 초주 쉬고 고안바we 티고 류버기 카지 짜기 세신이 람브라와 참마전도 군도 규버지 제 송소 남면 비스지 냐와니 짜기 강바 메라도 봐 주신다 남반도 빠서 동자 니슈예베 나네 작상 빠서 도만 예베 나도 초주의 성질로 대쪽네 초신 미세베메 거와 쳐봐 대드라양 카지 짜를 제베 산제도 지송 제기 투버신도 제 송소 동에 방참매베 나 나르메바 시차오 대다기 체야 지시도 톱잖아阳岁了说出人心对来菜了你下人天呐对他那么就是对别那等着一些先送的感谢这些知识看一不的鸟啊阳岁给你下基因了对数据的大家注意老是这边阳岁给让老熬夜头没路单了叫啊唱不唱叫啊车唱不出去你东西呢这些都他数据指数吧，鸟啊听了这，鸟啊听，让老当土的没路单的，瞧不着注意的，瞧啊查估计出动一月的，他差不多话的，鸟啊蹲中家人，鸟啊听，让老你当土的没路单呐，瞧啊查，瞧啊记当，瞧啊查，送不出去野东人月的，他干点吧的鸟不家人，鸟啊听，让老西当土的没路单呐，瞧啊查，瞧啊给的，瞧啊查，三年的，瞧啊查。古시동月的，他最高的，鸟我们去不着，鸟的让路街道土的没路单了，桥查桥出去走路的，桥查啥送的，桥查我们你这俺东月，他先去往前去，先去往前吧的，鸟查着鸟的让路去出东土的没路单了，老桥查桥俺家的桥查桥送去的桥查啥也的，桥查新部的桥查出东人月的。鸟라우드 사이네 체 발기 깨바 체토 나르메메 체 발기 깨바 찍토 대더야 라우드 사세 나면 발기 깨바 셰송수 녀고르 냐와는 냐와지부 대다 쇼시네 예도 대야 도마 메마 무르비누 잠이야라 심진 대다 내수도 대다 강바 샤는 바바다 샤다 차고 시부른 주로 강바 띠네 대다 쇠브른 주데 대는 라바 당보 대중도 로냐 미장은 덤즈 다도 무류가르신 고나라 추노와다 내시 대다 심지다 루베파도 미버쳐바데 대는 하버니버 대중은 중년의 부디담배 랑버시다 라질로면 나세다 키세워다 자기 샤말리다 카자기 수기는 네버쳐바데 대는 라마 숨보 대중은 주어라면 타주크메 강화데 대래 심지한 대다 처란 담는 기부라는 처연 토병 고아데 대는 라마 시와데 대다의 예복근을 하주로 대다기는 무엇이나 매만문의 로냐의 부질람수 초이시에 송소 지 기비 차제기 숙마당 가짜이 추진을 써봐 니순 고아대다 심진이나 뭐이시나 시라도 뭐는 심진이 임버 너대바는 심진 뭐이버도 내주줘본다 말바도 밀라yap세기 세바는 심진 디버치베 왕게 랑기 심이 되더라 나오는 뒤다 팀버 진주리 심진 야외 천자는 수직기는 체도체这是实习属于这毛说的 Chile chung, tena tena tamche yi disim yibu tube sung shen chung o.
First hell, the reviving hell, beings cut and kill each other, after which a cold breeze comes. When the breeze touches their bodies, they are revived again. This happens repeatedly until their lifespan has ended. In the black thread hell, the bodies of beings who are born there are cut by flaming swords or flaming axes wherever black thread has marked their bodies. Thus it is said, some are cut by swords and others are chopped by sharp axes. In the crushing hell, the bodies of beings who are born there are crushed between two big mountains or between iron plates. First, two big mountains come together like ram's heads and crush these beings. After that, the two mountains separate and cool beings revive the bodies as before. Then again they are crushed. The letter of training says, two terrifying big mountains like ram's horns crush the body into a powder between them. Others are pressed between iron plates, and a stream of blood flows like the four great rivers. As is said, some are pressed like sesame seed, others are ground into a fine flour. In the howling hell, the sentient beings who are burning there make terrified cries of fear. In the greater howling hell, the cries are more terrified due to the greater suffering. In the heating hell, beings are tortured by fire and so forth. Molten bronze is poured into their bodies and burns the internal organs of the body. Then they are pierced from the anus through to the crown of the head with a thorny, one-pointed weapon. In the intense heating hell, beings are tortured even more. Molten bronze and so forth burns their body's entire interior, leaving only the skin, and flames appear from the 9 orifices. Again, they are pierced from the anus and the soles of the 2 feet through to the crown of the head and the 2 shoulders by a thorny 3-pointed weapon. Thus it is said, likewise some are boiled in a burning stream of molten metal, others are pierced on hot thorny weapons. In the constant suffering hell, there is a blazing metal house 20,000 yojanas in height and length, in which there is a bronze kettle many yojanas across. In that kettle, beings are cooked in burning molten bronze and copper. Fire surrounds them in the 4 directions. Thus it is said, some are cooked like rice soup in a huge kettle made of metal. Because there is no break from suffering is called the constant suffering hell. What is the lifespan of these beings? The treasury of Abhidharma says, in reviving and so forth, the 6 hell realms, 1 day is equivalent to a day in the lifespan of gods of the desire realm. Therefore, their lifespan resembles that of the gods of the desire realm. The lifespan of the 4 guardian kings is equal to 1 day and 1 night in the reviving hell realm. So 30 days are 1 month, 12 months make 1 year. In their terms, the lifespan in the reviving hell is 500 years. In human terms, this is equal to 1,620,000,000 years. Likewise, one trillion 620 billion years. Likewise, the lifespan of the black thread hell is 1,000 years, which is similar to that of the heaven of the 33 God realm. In human terms, this is equal to 12,960,000,000,000 years. The lifespan in the crushing hell is 2,000 years, which is similar to that of the free of combat gods. In human terms, this is equal to 103,680,000,000,000 years. The lifespan of the howling hell is 4,000 years, which is similar to that of the joyous realm gods. In human terms, this is equal to 829,440,000,000,000 years. The lifespan of the greater howling hell is 8,000 years, which is similar to that of the enjoying emanation gods. In human terms, this is equal to 6,635,520,000,000,000 years. The lifespan in the heating hell is 16,000 years, which is similar to that of the controlling other emanations gods. In human terms, this is equal to 53,84,160,000,000,000 years. The lifespan of those in the intense heating hell is 1/8 of a kalpa. That of the constant suffering hell is 1/4 kalpa. It is said in the intense heating hell 1/2 anta kalpa, and in the constant suffering hell 1 anta kalpa, or intermediate eon. The neighboring hells, these are located in the 4 directions around the 8 hells. In the first additional hell, there are burning ashes in which beings sink up to their knees, looking for a way to escape the hot hell realms. Beings step into this, and all their skin, flesh, and blood burn up. When they raise their legs to take a step, they are rejuvenated again. Next to that, the second additional hell is an unclean, rotten corpse swamp, where beings are pierced to the bone by insects with white bodies, black heads, and sharp beaks. Beside that, the third additional hell consists of a road filled with razors, where all the trees and forests have razor leaves. Fierce, furious, brindled dogs live there. There is a forest with leaves like iron spikes, and there are ravens with iron beaks. Those who wander there suffer great rooms. Next to that, the fourth additional hell is a boiling river of ashes from which there is no exit. The messengers of Yama stand next to it and prevent beings from leaving, so they are cooked inside that river. Thus the treasury of Abhidharma says, 16 additional surround the 8 in the 4 directions: the burning ashes, rotten corpse, the razor road, and so forth, and the boiling river. The guardians of the hell realm, the Yamas in human form, and the ravens with iron beaks, and so forth, are they sentient beings or not? The Vaibhashika school says they are sentient beings, and the Sautrantika school says they are not. The Yogacarya school in the lineage of Marpa and Mila said that they manifest in the minds of sentient beings by the power of those beings' evil deeds. In relation to this, engaging in the conduct of bodhisattvas says, who intentionally created all the weapons for those in hell? Who created the burning iron ground from whence did all the demonesses ensue? The sage has said that all such things are the workings of an evil mind.
Nigalia Tamo de la di Shenamro Tatamungan Dishin. That Digi Kajue Zodida Koedunge. That Koedunge she Justane. Nyandru Dunge, Dendru Dunge, Somarveda. Nyandru Dendru Nye Indus, Nyandru Dungas at Dendru. Takandra, Jagi Kajweda. Nyandru the Dendru Nye, Nan, Dak Nyandru Dunge, the Lang, Sung Dunge, Tina and Tambunya Dunge Sungyare. Tanyawa Tele, Tsai Nyawa, the Changway Nyawa, Yesinya horse. That's how Nyawa ticket, Zawe Nedi. Jung Kashe Narola Sawe Nyawegi Zawe Nedi Doji Dengio O Pase Donta Nishuna Your rest the song Zawe Nedi the name Changway Nyawadi Zawe Nedi Kardisiki Kardisiki all ya your rest the Ned Sonsha.
Now here, this chapter is describing the sufferings of samsara, and with the sufferings of samsara, there are the sufferings of the lower realms and of the higher realms. And of these two, the sufferings of the lower realms are the 3 lower realms. And with the hell realms, there are the different hells, the hot hells, the cold hells, the occasional hells, and the neighboring hells. Now, in some ancient Indian texts, it gives a location for where the hot hells and the cold hells are.
Location.
It gives the main location for where the hot and cold hells are. And it is said that the hot hells are primarily below Bodh Gaya, 20,000 leagues below Bodh Gaya. And the cold hells are below the Mount Meru.
Mount Kailash.
Mount Kailash.
Back under ya, tell ya, Jungxia, Uma Pembe Lumbala. Pembosna di Yuzang Lumbachire. Pembe Lumbalia, the ne Rubjunch. Korantambu Rubjunche. Cheese to talk on Miji Sejar. Miji Sejar in Dusana. Go Choden Pusha, Nanny Yun, Choden Pusha, Michiares 미지데 팅지래야 제가 추림 bar 가담 군제송은 말왜 아니 제가 추림 bar 군륜 자가신 아니 제가 왜 걸라 레균제 최송바라스 레균제 최송 송네 다 nen가데 라마 담바지 땡고래 제네 십제 송바라스 데디자네는 고 데가사디 데데 잘라서 우리 가서 다디 잡아 놓대디 거기 삼레나 가르코르스나 라만 디서 미고고 준라야래 개우스탄우스 다이네 얘나 저딩지 치네 단 롱기 군디인디 롬사데 게라 첨보르도 롬된디 그래서 그 군디인지 치네 대바기 깨톱다고 삼네 롱기 저딩 침브레스 라딘 주두산에 롬덴바 꾸시보다 토버스 대사 롬덴바 꾸시보다 토버스 어네 파스웨이 꾸시보다 뒤주 토버다고 롬덴바 제토마 근데 인도 대두 계시 공부와사디 라딘 쇼 유베 인도산에 그 계시 공부와 제하심
There is a story about this. In the area of Penbo in central Tibet, there was a monk who actually murdered someone else and therefore was expelled from the monastery. And so he went to Chengawa Tsochimbar and he asked for, and he received some teachings, and Chengawa was teaching on karma, cause, and effect. And at this end, Chengawa said that the main point is that one needed to serve or attend a great lama. And so this former monk thought to himself, well, lamas are really good at fooling people and telling lies. So I'm going to go to Dromraji and go see if I can find Drom Tunpa, another great Kadampa master, and see if he will inspire any faith. And he went there, but it was about the same time that Drom Tunpa had passed away. And so he went to speak to meet. So there was another geshe who was there, Geshe Gompawa, and so he went to meet him.
Geshe Gompawa 그 최 송제 탐제 거 이만제 최 송바 최 망부선 최 송바 탐제了거 이만제제 팅질이야. 되네 초바지 가래 gathering 야 송제 팅지 송주지 거리야. 내 단기데 롱데 대어 바스 니 슈나 남에 바오 대서모사데 숨브레스 기시 콤바베데 숨브레 대송두산에 디네 고고디 다데 자와디 가라디 자와 다 자와이나 데 잘로이나 디 디네 고 이마세브레 고 이마세네 네 계시 공부할 게 되어서 네오 빠지 니슈나 나와 남의 예버도 수하고 알았어 빠지 니슈는 수치 버렸어 수치니 야로는 나와 남의 예버 수통됐어 기저티브레스
Now, when Geshe Gamboa was teaching the Dharma, this former monk did not believe a single thing that he said. Of the many things that Gamboa said in his teachings, the monk didn't believe any of them at all. And so one time in a gathering, there was Gompao was giving a Dharma teaching, and he recited this verse from the Treasury of Abhidharma, which reads, 20,000 leagues below here is the incessant hell. And this monk just did not believe this. He said, and he asked Gompao, who knows that there are 20,000 leagues below here? There's the incessant hell, the hell of incessant suffering. Who's been there and come back from there?
근데 다들 건드시듯이 계시 공부하디 달 디가래 레시 파르도데 뒤주지 데스제는 디가를 가셔야 돼 젠첩시네 다 젠첩시 sommarba da 미주 땅네 다 고미 이지시고만 이지고만 다 젠첩시네 되네 나 디카르조 젠첩게 돼 디스카르조 미번낭네 다 렌자마도 버스 다 디티들 기시신다죠 기시신다데 다 렌야 다데 탐지 gembe sungbare 탐지 gembe 상게 좀 sungbare 드네 누산 델베 이제 손에 아주 니제니 송고를 마시 바즈니 바즈니 준 미지 치니 드네 야 용어를 사테 뭐는 바즈니 준 미지 치니 되게 드네 어디 바즈니 슈나 드네 바즈 동다 니슈나 드네 가르자 냐와 도세 드네 드가스 미지리 이지체데바 라고 말했어 데 탐지 gembe 송이다 델레데 아주 세만지네 이제 저거 레스 기시 신다지 렌답
When he was asked this question, then Geshe Gompa burst into tears, and he shed so many tears that he was unable to answer the question. And so another Geshe who was there said, "Oh, this was said by the omniscient Buddha, and so we have to believe it. He is an authority. Otherwise, how could someone go down 20,000 leagues and see that, oh yes, there is a hell there? Who else could there be that we could believe in?" So this was the words of the omniscient one, so they must be authoritative.
Then midi they got a travel in Chalo the today in a Tamji Kambasa, the Tamji Kamba not get shortest, then go yalan your losses.
And so at that point, the former monk got up and he said, "Well, I don't know if he's, I'm not sure how to translate this word, so excuse me."
No problem. Then it's Chisu. Then they Javadi, the Chalotilla. Then it Pende, Travasindajigi, call a gizitiveness. And in Joran Gizi Gombo, the Tabaki Sungas, Tabajera, Taba Igita Sonwa, Dromla, Kazati, Radil, Tabazi Igita in Dusane, that Gizi Gombo, Tabaki Songas Tiveres. 그 게시 공부하사 줌을 납진도 스타데 미 줌을 쉬시도 줌 공부하지도 문 나는 고고여서는 공부하지 옛날에 포초가 간 고고 땅도 말아와 고고 땅도 마서
And so that monk got up and he left, not believing anything, and he went off. And later he met another monk who had known that he had gone to see the Geshe Gompa. And he said, "So did you feel faith for Geshe Gompa?" And the former monk said, "I feel faith for Geshe Gompa. He's as big a liar as any of them. He can't answer a question. He starts to cry like a baby. You know, how could a big guy like me, feel faith for him?"
That end of the that the Dinaloleya Chagi, Daddy Lamarusha, I mean, Daddy Naloleya, Daddy Lamarusha, you summon Dinaloleya, that Nudu Kashe Jor, Tadinan Ketchu Gilea, Targin Be Kashenam, Rundik Barma Imra, Tizunaloleya, Dene Nyawa Tsavegi, then Tsese Shen Goblia, Chawata, Chawa Sunju, Telea, Dene Chawata Juice, Tidos, Chawata Ju, Chawata Juice. 이게 마다버레도스 디 저차 숨줄 기르고도
There are some typographical errors in some of the editions, the Tibetan editions in these passages, and one of the most important of these is one that is found in some editions, including the Rumtek edition, where in discussing the lifespan of one of the hot hells, it is off by a factor of 10.
다들 준주기 농참배가리아 즉시서시 수위 지면 뭐다 모소트다 진리 중시 다 농참배가라 다디가 모디 카시에기 백하시나로 타긴이 백하시나로 메스 규르아레 다데 모 임바디 이제 김세 쳐요 그렇지 대한 군기 빼마 가르기 된 준주 제베 나로리아 디 메마임바 most of the Ganazum the permit the Delaya Hogwai Batam Junju Gabet is Junju Gabet Summerway. That Junju Gabet Nanolea Motayores the Karsati the Karsuda Sanskrit the Port and Moda money that they Yawashi Dusan and Delia Motaya Inza the Moloko those. 몰고고도스 라니엔데다 조디 긴디 춘베게 리저 판조 나로래야 근데 송여봐 양 준주의 편제 카지당 다나지 타긴기 백카지 나로래야 메소테다 지레 중스 멜이야 시아베트 용디 유스레 이나 모디 디스 김제 차오면로 선버르스데 주제
There is also the citation from the way of the Bodhisattva, and in this it says, "Who created the burning iron ground? Where did all the women in hell come from?" And here, in some of the editions of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, instead of saying women, mo, it says fire or me, and so this is found in several editions. Now, the omniscient Pema Karpo explains that that it should not be fire, but it should be women. Read woman here, and in many Indian manuscripts.
No. The original text, Junju.
He explained that in the original text of the Way of the Bodhisattva, it does not read fire, but it reads woman there. Also, in some Sanskrit manuscripts of the Way of the Bodhisattva, the word has a feminine ending. So, in Sanskrit, words can be masculine, feminine, or neuter in gender, and this one has a feminine ending. And so, for that reason, it refers to women, not to fire. And also, in Gendun Chipel's works on Sanskrit, it is explained as being feminine. And so, even though it says in some Tibetan editions of the Way of the Bodhisattva and in the Jewel Ornament of Liberations, in some of these it says that it reads fire, but it actually should read women, and there is good reason, or there is good backup for it reading for reading thus.
Nyawadi the Golia Kajwe Nyawa Nisung de Semjin Ima Isa Dili and Yun Zubaru Chajire Tatelia Lama Homanam Yishi Zuji Karayongor Sana and Mikachi Garsosana. That Nyawa Nisung is Jigu Jiame, Jigu Kariaris, Harasan or Semnam Zanji, Sim Nawa Zamshirawas. And Jigu Gaskim. Arangasim Yinawas, then Jigu Kariaris. The Dishin, the Rangi, Tonium, the Cartonius and a Conium. That day, Lama Common Yisuna, Semnam Rangasim Yinawa, that Dibegeta, Kashreji, Lena. Tende yimba tele dene lakbar dun jibo kego bares. Gyunsen jin shana ko jibo rangsen bar chiru yul chode ben jibo ru jimbina jichera tele yue thap da tele njotab yongsi res. Ta digba rang bhaja rang lenang ki bhaja yimina ta digba ma jang ba rang de nyam de le yong ma do be tele chön rosa ji da tar rosa ji yamar. Tende di gyunsen dene rāngi simnāngi, simgi nāngwā yīmbi, simgi chūnchūyāng, dīgwē pāshā yīmbi, tēlā tēne lāqbarādun jīgwē kēgō barayās, tēne sōng, tēne Hindustāna, tē mīsē jī kārshō tē, kūkyū sāngbō jī, lōgyē sāngbō rō jī dōsām, tēne rō chāyā sōng. Tā kāntarā yāng, jidāngi jī sēm kārshō rō tā, mō tā ngēn tē.
Now here there is discussion as to whether the guardians of the hells are sentient beings or not. And so there's a lot of debate about this. Now some people, when they explain this, they say that if the guardians of hell are merely appearances of our mind, then there is no need to fear, because actually then the appearance of a guardian of hell would just be a perception that comes up in your own mind, and there is no need to fear that. And so there are people who explain it this way, and I have heard such explanations. But many great masters of the past have actually said that if the guardians of hell are projections of our own mind, or appearances that appear in our mind that come from the evil karma that we have accumulated, then they're especially terrifying. And the reason for this is that if the guardians of hell were actual autonomous beings, separate autonomous beings, then there'd be some way that we could possibly escape them, flee from them, and escape them. But because they are projections or appearances of our karma, until such a time as we have purified the evil karma that causes that appearance, there's no way that we can flee from them and no way that we can escape them. And so, since they are projections or appearances in our own mind, then they're especially terrifying. They arise out of the imprints of the wrongs we have done. And so I think this is a good way to understand it.
Dinalo Karasuana, Nature Jevada Mabai, Tamila Yapsegi Shaba Nese, Mami Yapsegi Shaba de Nature Jeva, Samsamba the Yamduba Gresha di Temite Jebachegutus at this Sunit de Onde Yare, at the Jebacheguajiresha.
Now, it also says in the text here, the Yogacara school and the lineage of Marpa and Mila say that they manifest in the minds of sentient beings. And so this is, here they are saying that the explanation of the Yogacara school, as well as the explanation of Marpa and Milarepa, are equivalent. And it is necessary to examine whether this is tenable or not.
Tadeyam be Mindrawa Nalola, Kashi Nalola, Maba the Milaya Segi Shabasa, the Mevadinje, Yonsibi into Tajisha.
And since there are so many different editions, it's also possible that some of the editions might lack the words saying that it's the same as the lineage of Marpa and Milarepa.
Yeah. Casualty. Tapasinglia. Tak Kizikashi, Tinaba Train Castle. Devashamdo. Train to Sane. And Harlow, the Giddy Bandriga. Soaring, the
First, I'll speak for a little while, and then we might break a little bit earlier. I'm not feeling so well, and he has asked me to explain what I had missed before. And so this is in the story of Geshe Gongpa, with the monk who didn't believe when Geshe. And when the other Geshe said, "Oh, it's something that only the omniscient one can know. Only the omniscient one would be able to know. No one could go to the incessant hell and come back 20,000 leagues. So we have to accept the omniscient one as an authority." And so what this former monk, the one who had murdered another person, said is that, well, who's going to be who is going to vouch for that other person or swear that the omniscient one is truly omniscient? And so he didn't believe in anything. And so later he met the other monk, and the other monk asked him, "Did you feel faith for Geshe Gongpa?" And he said, "How could I feel faith for Geshe Gongpa? He's as big a liar as anyone and just sheds tears instead of explaining anything."